Assalamu alaikum. Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Buharilo Muhammad, and I'm going to be the host as well as the moderator of today's webinar. Uh, Therefore, on behalf of Gamji Educational and Mentorship Forum, I warmly welcome you to today's webinar on technology transfer, commercializing your research. So this webinar is designed to provide valuable insight into how researchers, academics, as well as innovators can bridge the gap between discovery and application, turning knowledge into income and impact. And today we are honored to have with us an exceptional line of speakers, including Professor Ahmed Adamu and Professor Zulfikar Adamu, alongside other presenters who will give a diverse perspective on this important topic. So I encourage everyone to actively participate, engage during question and answers, and make the most of this opportunity to learn and connect. Once again, thank you very much for joining us. So I think without wasting much of our time, I will directly introduce our guest speaker in person of Professor Ahmed Adamu, who is a professor of petroleum economics and Dean Faculty of Management and Social Sciences at Plymouth University, Abuja. He has expertise in oil and gas economics, energy policy, and research-driven development. He holds a PhD from Newcastle University and has extensive experience advising governments in institutions on economic and energy strategies. He is a renowned leadership expert, author, and mentor. He is passionate about translating knowledge into impact, empowering researchers and professionals to turn ideas into practical solution, making him well aligned with conversation that we are going to have today, that is technology transfer and research commercialization. He is going to give us an insight on the importance of technology transfer and innovation ecosystem in Nigeria. So, Professor, we are highly honored to have you here, and thank you very much. The floor is yours.
where we can use our where we can use research. I would rather call it monetization of your research, because universities or laboratories or researchers generally are instrumental for growth, and that's why in any country, any country that wants to develop or achieve sustainable development must heavily invest in research. Even in the current war, America and Israel attacking Iran, Iran fighting back, these are all outcomes, the weapons used there are outcomes of research. Some people were doing research and now they transfer that technology and they sell it and they make money. We've seen even Iran when they were using very cheap drones or missiles to attack or intercept $1 million missiles. And so this is telling you the power of research. Without research, your security will not be guaranteed. Even in Nigeria, we are suffering from insecurity, Boko Haram, banditry, kidnapping. All those issues are evidence of gap in our research. But most importantly, I believe the topic of today is that our researchers are not equipped with the knowledge on all the skills on how to convert their research into money. So how do you now, from your idea, from your research paper you published, how do you now make money out of it? And that is why you see, even in Nigeria, they ridicule professors. They think if you are a lecturer, you're a researcher, you cannot make money. You cannot be rich. And so they just assume anybody who is a professor or a teacher is just continuously going to be poor. And that's why it's not even respected profession in Nigeria. So that's a sign of laziness. And that's also because this kind of seminars have not been taking place for even the the researchers and the academicians. And this is a wake-up call for us to now take this kind of workshop to that grassroots level. So the moderator, when you are introducing me, I believe you must have used one of my old profile. I heard you mentioning I was in Nile. Yes, I was in Nile for 6 years, but I left Nile last year. So I'm now in Philomath University, Abuja. I am a full professor now. So I also had you talking about associate professor. Yeah, but that was back then. I am also the Dean of Faculty of Management and Social Sciences at the Philomath University. So just for an update, maybe because this is recorded, or maybe you might be quoted or reported elsewhere. So going back to technology transfer, now in Nigeria, we have a lot of young people. So many of them, a lot of them unemployed. And even yesterday, we were discussing with my brother how people are trooping into politics, how everyone suddenly become politician. And we are talking about how lazy we think, how lazy our systems are, our mindset. Every young person wants a quick shortcut to making it. Mostly people do politics because of the money attached to it, and the fame attached to it, the glory attached to it, perhaps the influence. But you see, in research, in technology transfer, in thinking, you can get all that. So people don't want to follow the research path, the idea, the creativity, the innovation part. They just want quick popularity, quick money, people that contest in all elections. Um, so young people, as long as we can think, as long as we can research, we can find something new, we can improve on something new, then we can make money out of it. But when you create an idea, you have to protect that idea. Otherwise, somebody will make money out of your idea. You do your research, perhaps many years or months. You put a lot of intelligence to it, your time, your passion, your resources to publishing that paper. Somebody will read your paper, will read your idea, just modernize it, and then that person will commercialize your idea and then make millions. Because there was a time when someone did a research, I think it's a scientific research back in late 80s at Oxford University. So what this researcher did was he in his research he developed a technique where you can edit genes. You know, the genes inside us. You know, you can edit the genes in people. It's a scientific research. So how do you come up with a technique that will allow you to edit genes with precision in people? So he found that technique. He published it. He published it in open science. So everyone was clapping for him. He was success. He was a great person. But 10 years after that, there were two women who came and registered a patent on that technique he created. So as far as the law is concerned, they are the patent owners. And because of that, these two women they become billionaires. Not because of their idea, because of someone's idea. So these two women, they are now the billionaires. And your guy, the Oxford researcher, will continue to become the footnote. Will just continue to be the footnote, mean that the reference. Because what these women did was, so they used the same science, but their strategy, they just changed the strategy a little bit and then publish the idea. So a lot of our researchers, they don't know how to protect the idea. Perhaps the idea has been used, has been commercialized without them even knowing. So when you publish without protecting your idea, you are just another philanthropist. You are just helping society. You're just that you cannot make money. So a lot of people, the mindset is that I'm just here to get a research, to do my research, publish it. How many papers do you have? How many discoveries have you have? Did you get your promotion to a professor? Fine. So sometimes it's not about publication, but about the value you create and also the money you make. So sometimes it's good to be generous, to help people. Just post there, but it comes with so much cost. And you see, even the Google that we are talking about today is only God that saved them, because at that time they were very young. They were a younger PhD students in the I think it's in Stanford. Yeah. So in 90s. So they were a student at Stanford. I mean, the founders of Google, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, I believe. So they came up with the idea that how can we now have one website that can take you to all different websites and then rank all the websites around the world. So you don't have to be going website by website, website by website. So they come up with this kind of algorithm. But at that time, they didn't have a company. There was no name Google. They only came out doing their research. They found the algorithm. So there was no product. There was no company. Just an idea. So that people will have a better way to search the internet. So, but one of the things they had in the US at that time was they have this office called Technology Transfer Office. So every university must have this kind of desk office, Technology Transfer Office, when researchers, professors, doctors, PhD students, master students, undergraduate, and other research centers have conducted a research. This Technology Transfer Office is supposed to be looking at the commercialization, utilization, or application of those ideas in society. So this office called the Technology Transfer Office, they call it TTO. They saw this idea that was created by their student, and they said, this is very unusual. This is really something incredible. And then at that time, this Larry Page and Sergey Brin, they don't know about patents. They just know how to create algorithm. So this TTO office, we are the ones that took that idea and patented it. So they patented the algorithm, and then they license it back to the two students. But the transfer office, so here is where the transfer office get its money. So we're going to own a stock. If your idea becomes big and accepted, we also own like a share in your idea. So, but we are going to register it for you. So universities will now be making money out of that. So we hire officers to look at commercialization potential of findings and innovations and creativities. And then the university will be making money. Now universities are complaining, lack of money. We cannot build more auditoriums. We cannot build classrooms. We cannot build more labs. We cannot sponsor researchers, because we don't know how to turn all the previous researches into money. So I believe that Stanford University have earned more than $300 million from just helping those two students to do patent. Patent was that time was less than I'm sure $100. It's not up to $100 to do that. But now Stanford University is earning more than $300 million. Now look around our universities. How much money do they make from technology transfer? Or helping their students, from helping their lecturers to commercialize their findings. So this is a wake-up call. I believe this should be a national seminar. A lot of people need to know about that. Even if people are poor, there are poverty, inflicted with poverty, they should start thinking about research. They should start thinking of creativity, rather than just thinking of buying a form to contest an election. Everyone is a politician. We are a country of politicians. Election every 4 years, every 4 years, every 4 years. Disruptions. That's why we don't have stability for longer period thinking and sustainability in our plans. The politicians will contest election before they settle down in 2 years. It's another 2 years to election time. So they're all thinking is now the next election. The first 2 years, they were thinking about how to even stabilize, settle, and understand their priorities. The second year, they are already contesting for election. So the whole first tenure, there was no focus on development ideas. So we should take a break from politics and focus on national development. Our national development is not in politics all the time, because, like I always say, no matter how many times we do election, we will not fix our problems. Our problems are in what we do as people, in our attitudes, and in sustainable development, and also in research. But you see government coming and changing philosophy and directions and focus of the previous government. So research needs consistency, needs protection. So what the point I'm making is, let's make research and idea creativity more attractive than politics. So the previous example I gave, the Google, because Google became Google because of that office in their university. Because that office understood that a research paper and a commercialized license are two different things. So you can have your research paper, but do you have a commercial license? So when you have these two, that means you can transfer your idea. So all those transfer officers, people that help you with patents, they are not your enemies, but they're just there but when you don't like them, when you feel that they're coming to take something from you, that is the enemy. So there are so many potentials in research. I see research like entrepreneurship, because you don't necessarily need the capital to start the business, but you just need the capital of thinking, and then the little resources to continue to do your experiment, to do your findings, and then you launch it. And one good thing is the technology transfer is not only subject to science. A lot of people who study sociology, who study economics, political sciences say, maybe patent or maybe technology or idea or innovation are only restricted to science, but it can be applied in all fields. For example, now, political science. So in political science, there was someone who developed an idea. He developed a framework for that. This is what you call democratic backsliding. So how do you measure political backsliding? Democratic backsliding. Democratic backsliding is a weakening of the democratic institutions. For example, suppression of power, devolution of power, transparency, accountability, So how do these institutions and these norms and procedures by the elected officials, these procedures are weakened by the democratic officials? For example, you can see sometimes media are losing their freedom. Judiciary is losing its independence. You see executives interfering in the judiciary, or, for example, maybe undermining oppositions, or rigging elections, or even canceling elections and things like that, which is common in many countries. So somebody who did a research, he developed a framework for measuring how we have this kind of democratic backsliding. So how do you measure it? So it was beautiful. It was very predictive, and a lot of researchers loved the idea. In fact, he was cited in fact, more than 4,000 times. So he tried to commercialize that idea. Uh, he passed the consultation stage, uh, but the government didn't like that. So the product died in the third year, I believe, or fourth year. So it didn't pass through. Yeah. So sometimes it's not only about just getting it, but some knowledge are meant to just infect minds, not generally to get the money out of it. So sometimes democratic theories, they don't need subscription. They just don't need the money to be paid. It just needs the idea to be out there and change the system. So the point I'm making here is that sometimes research is not about always about the money you make, but sometimes the impacts you make in society. So you can look at society, look at all the problems we face in society, and use your research, use your idea to solve a problem. And you can always patent that idea. And once it's applied, for example, you can look at insecurity, you can look at corruption, come up with an idea on how to solve it, patent that idea, share it, and make money out of it. So research, patent technology can apply in all fields. So for me, research is the backbone of every development. So anything that you see that amazes you, anything that you think have changed the world, be it aeroplane, be it the rocket that goes to the moon. In fact, this Zoom technology that we are using, it was someone's research idea. So but unfortunately, most of our ideas, they lived and died inside the lab or inside our research rooms. So we need to take some of them, revive them. So our labs or our research rooms become like the graveyards where ideas live and die and get buried there. Because it's not fair. You have spent many years on these sleepless nights, so many experimentations, and so many ideas coming to you. But most of our researchers, they stop there. And they just get publish their paper, they publish their papers. And then even if they have patents, the patents, they just keep it. And then the whole world move on. And there's nothing coming out of that. So I believe in Nigeria, we should have a technology transfer policy where people who have ideas can walk into an office, get an instant patent and protection, and then be given the ideas on how to commercialize it and how to market it. So technology transfer is not just not a paperwork. Even if you go into that office, it's not about just the paperwork. It is translation. I would rather call it like that. So how do you now convert that idea into money? So your job is to become somebody who I will call bilingual. You have an idea, you also want to speak about money. So the first thing you need to do is to license that idea to a company. So the best thing to do is to build your own company, or you can get another company and then license that patent to the company. So what I'm saying is that you can patent your idea and license it to your company, and then you derive it, or you can patent the idea and then license it to another company, and that company will continue to ride on that and give you commission. So that company may have an existing market and customers. So if you want to make money directly by yourself, you can license it to a company. If you want to liaise with another company, you can do that. But not all science is commercial science. Like I said, some are just there to change society, not to make money. But still, you can find a way by looking at the problem in society to use your idea to solve a problem. So ask yourself this question: who are the people that will suffer without this your idea? So if you cannot name a specific person or a company or a country that is in pain, you only but this country are in pain, but if you come up with an idea, you are going to relieve their pain. If you cannot answer this question, you cannot come up with the name of somebody who is in pain, that your research, your idea will solve their pain, then whatever you are publishing, it just become a publication. It cannot be a product. So the point I'm making here is that whenever you are doing your research, look at the pain areas of society and do your research to come up with the creativity to relieve the pain. So pain here is the prerequisite for commercialization. Every other thing is just become like painting, like a decoration. So once you can identify the pain period, do your research, protect your idea, then you can patent it, license it, and then the money start coming. So my main highlight for this speech, I would rather say, is the mindset shift. So a lot of people think researches are just meant for universities. You can see a whole university for more than 3-5 decades, but they have not commercialized one idea. None of it is researchers, students, or even the university is getting a commission from any idea that has been commercialized. So they were just trying to share. Just share. Open science, peer review, collaboration. So the best thing to do is now to change the mindset. So how do you now learn how to share? Is by also looking at other stories. So I encourage researchers to look at the stories of people who are invented great ideas and commercialize it and make money. So many examples that you can look at. So you can also sometimes do collaboration. For example, you can come up with a team. Sometimes you are not enough. So your PhD means that you can solve the problem. It does not mean that you can sell it, or you can manufacture it, or you can survive the procedure, the bureaucratic procedure. So you need to find some mercenaries, the business guys, the manufacturing veterans who have come out with so many startups and they have achieved great things to help you move that. So humility here is not only virtue, is for survival. But there will be challenges, but you have to endure to continue. Sometimes you might be rejected. You have to refine your work and continuously like that. Because this world that we live in, we don't need more researchers. We just need ideas. And everyone's idea could be the next. We have more than 1 billion, we have more than 8 billion brains in the world. And all of these, they are unique. So only if you stop acting like a scientist or like a researcher to become like a research entrepreneur. So become an owner, become a founder, become a translator between what is possible and what is real. So I don't have much more to present apart from this highlight. I would rather like to have interactive sessions so that we can directly respond to specific questions, ideas. But I'm just giving you a teaser or just a highlight of what will drive this conversation. So, moderator, I would like to yield at this moment and allows interaction, questions, and if there are other speakers to also listen from them and also get more ideas if I may come back for the second time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor, for this wonderful presentation. Actually, it's really inspiring, and I have noted some key point. I think that we should all dwell on them. The first one is we should take a break from politics and prioritize national development. Yeah, I think the professor has touched a very critical issue, that is the problem of our current Nigeria. Everyone is invested into politics, not the politicians, not the business men, and not the researchers and professors. Why? Because I think politics is lucrative, and as professor said, let's make research more attractive than politics. And I think the reason why politics is attractive because of the money that is there. So I think through technology transfer, by commercializing our research, we can make our research more attractive than politics. But I think there is a lot of things there, and maybe people would like to ask a question. But Professor, before that, I would like to ask you if you are going to stay with us till end of the session. If not, then we can just go into the question and answers before you leave.
Yeah. So let me take the Q&A when the ideas are still freshly in our mind.
Okay, yeah,
But if I'm leaving, I will let you know.
okay, that would be great. That would be great. So
Mm.
now the floor is open. If you have any question for Professor, you
Not
can.
necessarily question, but additional information,
Yeah.
contribution as well.
Yes. But before that, I have a a question also, Professor. Even though, yeah, it's really critical that we start to shift our thinking from just mere research for publication and certificate, but also for innovation and also how to make money from it. But one of the key problem actually that we have in Nigeria is the research funding. So some of these ideas you cannot really actualize them without funding. So in this case, how do you think, especially the young researchers, can be able to cope with this situation, the lack of funding in our
Yeah,
Nigerian?
this is a very critical question. You see that there are two ways to it. One is through the natural pipeline, which is you going to your university to apply or going to the research funds to apply. You know, so you just know there are so many funds out there for research funding. But there is another way too. You can do what I call begin with the end in mind. So when you have a research, you see an idea that is commercialized, it's giving birth from the initial time. So you have to start when you are starting your research, you have to have in your mind that I am going to sell this. I'm going to make money out of this. Do not start a research because you're just thinking of doing a research. You have to begin the research with an idea of making money out of it. So begin with the ends in mind. So you have to start the thinking of the money first, and then you retrieve your step backward to where you are now. So in the process of backsliding, coming backward, you will now see who are people who may likely to be interested in this idea and who you want to share with. Who do you want to license it to? For example, you can meet a company and say, hey, you company, I want to help you with an idea. This is my research. And if this idea comes to fruition and I'm going to license it to you, and you are going to give me so share, and you're going to get so amount of money. So in this way, the company that you are going to license that patent to may likely to fund you. So you might bypass the academic funding and then go into the market and look for a fund. So like I always tell entrepreneurs too, if you think funding is a problem, that's indicative of how weak your idea is. A compelling idea never lacks funds. There are some ideas that once it enters anyone's ear, the only thing that will stop that person from investing in it is lack of the money, because there are more billionaires than the ideas need. We have people with who holds more money than what researchers need. So it's just that you have to have the ability and know how to pitch your idea to the right person. And our researchers need to be patient too. So you have to knock again and again to many doors. You don't just knock on one door, rejected, then you give up. So keep trying again and again and again. But like I said, you have to begin with the pen period. You have to begin with a gap. You have to begin with a problem. So what problem are you solving? Like I always say, if you are solving big problem, you get big money. If you are solving small problem, you get small money. So the size of the problem you are solving determines how big the money is. It determines how quickly you can attract the funds. But I know in academia in Nigeria, funding are very restricted and not that free. But I'm sure even in academic institutions, if your idea is compelling, you will get it. We know we have TED funds. We have even state universities. They have the grant for research. We have so many NGOs that fund research. So it's up to you to do also your research to see how you can find funders. Even if they're non-traditional funders, even if you have an organization that is not naturally funding ideas or research, you can approach that, then see how you can align the value of your idea to their core values as well. So to answer your question in summary, how compelling the idea is, that determines how fastly you can get the money.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yes, moderator.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor. And yeah, in addition to that, also there are a lot of international funding as well. And as you said, it depends on the originality of your idea. Once your idea is good, I think, uh, as you said, you will never lack funding. Thank you very much, Professor. We have
Mm.
another person in the chat, and we have someone raising hand, but let's this one from Imran Salisu, he said, so what do you have to say about even some professors that are not interested in this paradigm shift, turning research ideas to or works into cash? Because I was told that in one of your previous university, you worked there was time you organized a leadership training, but most of them resisted the idea saying that they don't need any additional training since they are already professors.
Me too. I laughed at this question. This person must have known me or hear the story behind the scene here.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
actually, I was frustrated out of that situation, because I I saw so many things not going well, and I saw so many mindset gap issues with leadership, personal development among academicians. researchers, professors, who they call themselves professors, but their attitudes, their behaviors, their thinking are not reflecting their level of academic achievement. So you see someone who is a professor, who is a doctor, who is a lecturer, but the way he behaves, the way he thinks, the way he treats students, the way he also deals with his research is like someone who has never gone to school. So I said, okay, how can we have a mindset shift? How can we have a change in the way we think? Because we even had lecturers who would go and copy and paste other people's work. We've seen lecturers who were sacked because they lifted some other people's work. They just changed the name and then they say they're the ones who published it. So and there's so many of them, and they're the people we call professors, and they become the role model. And the student will cycle that behavior again and again, and they become what their professors have become. So it becomes like a vicious cycle of backwardness in our academic institution. So when I returned back to the country after my studies in the UK, and I started seeing so many things not right. So I established that leadership training, and to my dismay, that idea was rejected. And so people don't have this open mind to learn from other people. So you didn't just learn from the people who you believe are your superiors or are the professors. You learn from everyone. You don't choose who you learn from. In my book, You Are a Leader, I talk about the humility of learning. Learn from anyone, irrespective of their age, their rank, their gender, their religion, their region. As long as you have this open ear, you are going to be a great learner. You're going to be a great leader. So you can imagine if in academic environment, researchers or professors don't like to learn. So how do you expect them to now have this kind of mindset shift? So we have to begin with this mindset shifting about new way of order. And I want Gamji Educational Mentorship Forum to propose a policy to the federal government to establish this technology transfer office in every institution, and even set a competition and a target, and say maybe, let's say, for example, any university that was able to patent and license and make money from any idea, that university will win an additional grant of, let's say, 1 billion naira. You understand? So there's going to be a chase. There's going to be a competition. Everywhere they want to do that. So all these transfer technology officers, they want to win that grant. And then university will also own share. So we need to come up with a national policy about technology transfer or commercialization of research ideas. So we have to be strategic. We have to do workshops. We have to educate the lecturers, the researchers. We also have to tell successful stories. So I have not done quite more research to find more successful stories, but I'm sure a simple chat with AI will prompt, when you prompt it, it will give you so many lists of successful technology transfer that has been achieved. Not necessarily distance one, the ones that were done in the 80s, even the recent ones. Because every time we innovate something, we are creating a gap for another improvement. So I would say this question he asks is indicative of the big gap in the mindset we have in our academic institution. So we have to have a policy that will force the academicians to change, to improve. Mr. Moderator.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor. And I'm afraid someone is raising hand, but I think due to the time, we will leave the questions from here. But once again, thank you very much, Professor, for this wonderful insight that you share with us regarding this very important and key topics, technology transfer. And we hope in the future, if we organize similar webinar, you can be able to also share it with us. And also, inshallah,
Okay.
the Gamji level, like you suggested, we should propose a policy where we can suggest either maybe to the federal even or state government on this technology transfer. I think we will really take it upon ourselves to see how we can make some kind of document regarding this technology transfer. Thank you very much for this suggestion, Professor, and I thank you
You're
once again
welcome.
for the wonderful insight. So I
Thank you
think
so much.
we are going to move to the next presentation, which is going to be about how to now we see the general perspective on technology transfer and why we should commercialize our research. And in the next presentation, we are going to see how we can practically transform this idea into commercialization. And is going to be presented by Professor Zulfikar Adamu. Professor Zulfikar Adamu is an associate professor of strategic IT in construction in London South Bank University, specializing in digital transformation within the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. His expertise spans industry, digital construction, BIM, data analytics, and AI-driven solution for improving productivity and efficiency. So, but as I said, uh, he's supposed to be here with us, but unfortunately, yeah, he's ill, so he cannot present in person. But we have his recorded video, so I would like to share it to see the previous presentation that he did. Then we can move to other presentations. So I will share the video right now. Yes, so
the formal presentation at BUK. I hope I'm not going to bore you to death. You might hear some things that you've heard before, but there's a few ideas also that I've inserted and updated the presentation. So I was asked to talk about transforming research outputs into market-ready innovations and intellectual property protection, patents, licensing, and commercialization. This is quite a mouthful. In fact, each of these is a presentation of its own, but I'll try and do justice to it. Okay, so let's get on with it. Basically, the presentation has three parts. The first is the background and context, because I want to give you some sort of understanding of how, why research is important, or why commercializing research might be valuable or necessary. And then we need to look at things like technology readiness level of your work, and maybe how you've identified those who will collaborate with you in terms of your technology readiness level, because nowadays most commercialization will most likely involve technology of some sort. But I'm also going to cover social sciences for those of you who don't do technology-related work, like social sciences and arts and just that. We will have some similarities to discuss about that later. Secondly, I'll talk about strategies for commercialization. This is the core of the presentation. And then finally, we'll have our conclusions, questions, and answers. So I have to warn you that I'm not here to tell you how to do research. I presume that you know how to do research. And I think with all the presentations I've been going on with the past couple of days, most of you who are already doing research know how to do research better. You know how to apply for grants. This is about making money. So I'm not here to tell you how to do research. This is about commercial aspect of your research, or what we call the intellectual property from your research. Okay, and the concepts that I'll discuss generally apply to all disciplines. Okay, but I may give some examples from engineering or construction or agriculture. It doesn't matter. All right, and I also want to give this preamble caveat that when you think about commercialization, you need to think about collaboration, because it's very rare for someone to have a commercially viable research that is just by a sole author or a sole researcher. Nowadays, in fact, many journals do not even like sole authorship papers. They say, oh, how can you be the only one who knows this subject matter? If a journal can think like that, what makes you think in the real world you alone can come up with an idea that I mean, you can, individuals invent things, but in academic settings, you're better off exploring the solution space outside your own domain. So you are into engineering, you might find yourself working with psychologists to come up with, or social scientists to come up with a commercially viable kind of research. So this is just something that you need to understand that's very, very important. It's not something you're expected or required to do alone. Okay. So Why is research important? First of all, we as academics and researchers, we are in the business of knowledge. Farmers are in the business of food. Police people are in the business of whatever it is police do, catch bandits. Karota is in the business of traffic control in Kano. I think I've been in Kano a few times, so I know a few things about Karota, whatever. Okay, so but we academics are in the business of knowledge. That is what we do. We generate knowledge, we curate this, we disseminate it, we expand it. Okay, and we are also drivers of commercial empowerment of society. We might not know this, but we are powerful drivers of commercial empowerment, even though in some developing countries like Nigeria, we find it difficult to translate research into commercial empowerment. But in the other parts of the world, you find out that a lot of development actually depends on research. You now start to talk about companies, about your ideas. They say, oh, that's theory, please go away. But if you're a good researcher and you want to commercialize your work, you can approach any company. I don't know, let's say Rufai that you got, and say, look, I'm a biotechnologist or a bioscience, what do you call them, biochemist or microbiologist, and I think I have an idea of how you can make your yogurt more suitable for diabetic patients because I've come up with this research. Oh, wow, really? Let's talk about it. So they now create a new product for diabetic patients. You can see where I'm going. So sometimes it's about you going out there and making your work known for commercial value. Now, we know, of course, another motivation for good research that is commercially valuable is academics in Nigeria, they're not well paid. Poor remuneration can stifle your morale. It can cause distractions. When you're supposed to be teaching, you're thinking about going to sell handouts or driving Uber. Some unethical practices like bribery. So there are many motivations to think about making money from research. Okay, but it's also important to identify kind of knowledge and research that has commercial value. Just because you have expertise or you have a passion for something does not mean somebody will pay you for it. You have to understand that. Your expertise is one thing. Your passion is a different thing. No businessman makes profit simply because he has a passion. He makes a profit because there's a need for that thing. You have a passion for, I don't know, bread. Does not mean you're going to become a very successful baker. There has to be a need for bread and donuts in your area. Otherwise, you're not going to make success out of it. Okay. Importantly, also, you need to think about who's paying attention to your research. Who needs your research? Who's your stakeholder? What are the rules to impact? If you're a civil engineer, will Danta Tansao or Chinese construction company or Julius Berger, will they come to you for example, about how to improve the quality of their roads? This is how you need to value yourself as a researcher. And that's how you can make impact. Because there are many ways you can make impact as a researcher. We're going to talk about commercial impact, commercialization, but I need, in the context of this presentation, make you understand there are other ways you can make impact, like instrumental or policy impact. You can make research that can change policy in Kano, for example, and that may not necessarily bring you money, but hey, you might end up becoming a commissioner for something because you brought some policy that got rid of the Almajiri syndrome. All of a sudden, you're minister of homelessness or whatever. Sorry, commissioner for homelessness. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Impact and commercialization does not always translate into immediate cash. It could be opportunities, it could be job consultancies and other things. There's also capacity building impact where you are growing people in terms of how they are capable of doing things, or cultural impact where you're able to change society in so many ways. This can manifest in so many ways that I don't want to dwell into because our job here is to talk about what? Money, commercial impact. So let's move on. How do you identify whether your research has commercial value? The first thing I'm going to say here is this. Please remember this. If you don't take anything out of my presentation, remember this. If you have a solution to someone's problem, then you have a business. If you have a solution to someone's problem, you have a business. Dangote is in business because it has a problem of fuel in Nigeria. Innocent is in the business of making cars because we need motors. Everybody that has a business is solving a problem. The question is, are you solving a problem that is unique to a niche for people or to a wider set of people? Some research will apply to something that is massively used by the population. But some research will be very specific. You come up with a very innovative equipment. It's rarely used by a few companies, maybe mining companies, but whenever they buy that company, they're buying it in millions or billions. That's a different thing. All right. But some people also do research where it's like, I don't know, like pure water. A lot of people use it and you make your money because of mass distribution. So you need to think about those two angles somewhere in between. Okay. This applies to all businesses, by the way. Okay. So your research, you need to think, is this something that can be massively used, or do I have a niche market that I'm going to target, in which case the value has to be worth my effort and my time? Okay. Now, as far as academics are concerned, we are in the business of knowledge. And a lot of times we tend to publish our knowledge. And you hear this phrase called publish and perish. Okay? All right? In those days, it used to be called publish or perish up to the 1990s. If you don't publish papers, you are going to perish as an academic. But the world has changed. They say now if you publish, you may perish. Previously, if you don't publish, you perish because you will not grow. As an academic, you will not have promotion and all that kind of stuff. But now we've got to such a stage where you are worried that you may end up publishing something that has commercial value. Okay, right? Because once you publish, you cannot claim intellectual property of what you published already. Okay, so if you need to publish, for example, you want to file for a patent, you need to do that before you publish or as simultaneously. It can be done in some countries. Okay, and there are ways of identifying what is patentable or what is commercially viable. There's something called technology readiness level, TRL. This is about mapping the maturity level of your ideas into certain levels. And many funders, especially in Europe and North America, they use TRL to be able to map, okay, this research that we're going to do is at TRL level 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 9. Okay, it's a measurement system. All right, and I'll explain this basically in the next slide. When you have TRL 1, it's about basic observation, scientific discovery, basic things. Pure and applied science people tend to do TRL 1 kind of research. It's just, I just want to explore what happens if this molecule is clashed with that other molecule. We don't really know what will be the value of that research, but this is what they do. They look at the stars and wonder what happens if planet Jupiter is rotating at a certain speed, or whatever. You know, they just do pure and applied research. Okay, and it goes towards hypothesis formulation, and then sometimes they might go to proof of concept. Okay, and then they might test it in a lab. And after that, you go to TRL level 4 where you validate it and you find out, oh, you know what, this is really good. Like graphene, if you know graphene, one of the strongest elements, it started as just, you know, TRL level 1 research. They were just interested in carbon. And before you knew it, they came up with this component. This material is one of the strongest components in the world. Okay. So that's TRL level 5, which is when your work is validated or simulated in an environment. TRL level 6 is when you have a prototype that you can actually take for some people to test. TRL level 7 is refinement of that prototype and demonstrating it that it really has taken into feedback of the community and society. And TRL level 8 is system is complete and qualified. And then at TRL level 9 is operational environment, and you're already making billions and billions of naira. So as a researcher, it's your job to think about what kind of research do I do? Do I belong to the pure and applied sciences, where I might be doing work at TRL 1, 2, 3? Am I into applied sciences, where I might be doing 4, 5, 6, 7? Or am I into engineering or technology, or am I working at 6, 7, 8, 9, or whatever? It all depends on your industry. Okay, but that does not mean if you're a pure applied scientist, you cannot collaborate with someone to do something that moves from 1, 2, 3 to TRL level 8 and 9. It's all about collaboration. This is why I say don't work in silos. Okay, but when you think about TRL, also you need to think about who is your suitable partner, because as an academic, you're not qualified in general. You're not trained to make money. You're trained to think. You're trained to come up with research questions, objectives, hypothesis testing, you know, questionnaire, deploy, analysis, whatever. This is what you're trained to do, publish papers. But when it comes to making money, you need to know who are your industry partners, who are your stakeholders. At TRL level 1 to 3, your suitable partners most likely might be universities because of the early stage, or R&D institutions or innovation foundations, okay, because they're just generating new knowledge and, you know, do further studies. At 4 to 5, you're at validation stage, maybe some technical SMEs or incubators, technology incubators might be interested in this. At TRL 6 or 7, engineering firms and technology firms might be interested, like Jules Berger, they might be interested in piloting this new road asphalt material that you discovered. At TRL level 8 or 9, you're looking at like angel investors and companies wanting to throw money to buy shares or buy or license your patent or whatever and use it immediately and start making money. Okay, so this is very important. If you don't know who your partners are, you might end up talking to the wrong people. Okay, but if you're not in social science, does it mean you cannot do technology readiness level? No, we have equivalents. Like they have skills. Instead of physical prototypes, there might be things like social intervention or policy tools, a behavioral method, an educational program, a digital humanities tool, a new creative process, and so on and so forth. In the EU in particular, for example, they made it possible for social scientists and artists to have conceptual development, piloting, demonstration, and social adoption. It could be about policy or other kind of market-related sort of things that don't have to do with pure technology. Okay, so don't think that because I said TRL, technology readiness level, it means your work must always be about technology. No. Okay, it's just one of the most popular skills that are used. Okay, so let's go quickly through the strategies for commercialization of research. How can I really make money from research? Is it possible even to make money from research? Well, let's talk about intellectual property. It's something you have to understand if you are trying to make money from research. There's something called intellectual property, property that is of intellectual value. Okay, and there are 3 types. There are patents, There's copyright and there's trademark. What is a patent? Basically, something that protects you. A new, non-obvious, and useful invention. It has to be new. It has to be something that is not very obvious. If it's a solution that is obvious to anyone, then you cannot patent it. And it must be useful. It must have utility. You cannot invent, for example, a ladder, a small, tiny ladder that allows a cockroach or a spider to crawl out of a kitchen sink. That's a very useless invention. You're not going to get a patent for that. Okay. But this patent gives you exclusive rights to a limited period, usually around 20 years, where you have that authority to control this. Nobody can use this without your permission. Okay. Basically, in simple mass language, patent gives you the right to sue people if they use your idea. Okay. It may not necessarily give you money immediately, but to own a patent is a good thing. You can license it. You can give, when you license it, it means you're giving a company a license to use this, or you can give it through royalties. You say, for every unit of this product that you sell, I want so percentage. So let's say the microbiologist who came up with a diabetes-friendly yogurt for Rufida. You might go to them and say, okay, for every can of Rufida yogurt that you sell, I want 10 naira or 5 naira or whatever. That's like a royalty. Okay. But licensing means, okay, take this technology, every year pay me 1 million or 2 million or 20 million. How much you sell out of that is your business. Okay. So that is that. And you need to make a formal application for your patent to be examined by experts on a national or regional or territorial level, and then you'll be granted a patent if it's qualified. Copyright is about creative arts like text, images, music, and films, and this is automatically granted immediately you create that thing. So, for example, if you create an image or a text or like a novel, automatically you already under copyright. That's why most books you see that C symbol, copyright. If you write a book, automatically it's granted. You have copyright, and you can sue people for copying or plagiarizing your book. Trademarks are more about identifiers and branding, like names and logos and slogans. So you cannot use the logo or symbol of Dangote or Shema Oil or Rufida. You cannot just use it anywhere you like because it's protected. Okay, this is to distinguish them from copyrights and people who want to take advantage of them. These are 3 ways of making intellectual property. So if you're into the arts world, you might find yourself working with people doing logos and slogans and shapes and sounds that you can trademark. And if you're into writing, like an author, you can get copyright from books. Or if you're into invention, you can be going towards patenting. Let's quickly look at patenting or intellectual property from the perspective of funded research. Not every research is funded. Sometimes you just do research because you're interested. But imagine that your research is funded, and your work is unique. Then you need to think twice before you publish it. A lot of times we get funded projects, we finish the project and we rush, we must get a paper out of this. It might be a mistake. Don't rush into it. Unless you're required by the funding body to publish, then you should publish. But before you publish, you need to think, do I have to publish everything? Is there some part of it that I can keep aside and not patent? Okay? For example, and right now I'm giving a practical example. I'm writing a research paper, and as I was about to submit the paper, myself and a group of people, we realized there was a funding call that fits perfectly with this research paper. So we are now suspended publishing the paper. We want to submit the funding call. Once it goes in, then we publish to send the paper out. You see my point? All right. So your IP, like I said, can take the form of patenting, copyright, and trademarks, and you need to think carefully about who is funding your work and what do they expect for you. If they expect some publication or some products or some output, you need to be willing to give it to them, but you need to be careful to also ensure that maybe they say you cannot commercialize this work, then you cannot commercialize it. Sometimes government agencies will give you money. They don't want you to personally make money from it. If TED Fund gives you money to do some research that is changing the educational sector or PTDF, they want this whole society to benefit. You cannot take the patent on your own alone. It's not necessary. It's not ethical, actually. Okay? And please do not create an IP, copyright, patenting, or trademark for the sake of it. It has to be something that's useful to someone. Okay? And you cannot be a patent idea if you've already published it. You've established that already. So the whole point is that whatever you want to patent must be unique. It cannot be flimsy. It must be a product that has intellectual process. It must be solution seeking, and it must be something that can be commercialized in mass, or something that has an expensive or valuable quality to it, so that even if people buy it by year, then it's worth it. So, for example, if I sell watches, I could decide to sell only Rolex watches. I might get only 5 customers a year, but each time they buy a Rolex watch, I make a lot of profit. But if I decide to sell cosmetic earrings, I could sell them at 20 naira, and a lot of people buy it, and I will still make my profit. Think about it that way. Let's give a case study of intellectual property through patenting. This is integrated mobile PRO water purification system. that was invented by UTM Malaysia. It was meant for disaster relief. It's an innovative system where if you have a disaster like an earthquake, war, or whatever, and people don't have access to clean water, this device can take brown, dirty water and purify it, make it drinkable. So this is very, very practical. You can see that this is very engineering, but you'll be surprised that there's some aspects of this patent or this work that require social scientists, user experience people, psychologists, because you need to think about people in a state of war or disaster. Is this user friendly to them? You can't just bring something that is an idea without testing it. That's why TRL allows you to demonstrate things at different levels. But patents can also come from PhDs. This is the part where I really would like to focus on a lot today, because sometimes we underestimate the power of PhDs. PhDs are meant to give you a doctorate of, of philosophy. It's a thinking degree. You create new ideas. You cannot get a PhD if you don't have an original idea. But how many times have we produced PhDs that have patenting value? We don't tend to do that a lot in Nigeria. If I've hardly seen anyone. But you can't get a PhD, a patentable PhD, more or less. It's all about the originality of the solution. Okay, it requires not just your intelligence, but creative thinking in terms of your entrepreneurial interest. And that's why sometimes we need to be able to think about training our postgraduate students and researchers about how to think like an entrepreneur, how to think like a businessman. Because, if you just keep doing research that is just cited, you have 10,000 citations. What does that mean? 10,000 citations just means 10,000 people who are like you, working in other universities around the world, thought your work was kind of useful, and they kind of cited it in their paper. And some of them might be citing it for the wrong reason. They might be condemning your paper. They might be saying this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong 10,000 times. So citation by itself is not a marker of success necessarily. Okay. So supervisors who guide PhD students have that duty of care to ensure that when they are supervising their students, they identify the commercial value of the work and kind of, like say, has a wariship. By the way, you keep it aside and say, look, this one has commercial value. Let's not include it. Let's keep it for later work. But the institution like BUK has to have that framework, that system that allows PhDs to be able to translate into patents. In fact, in many universities in the UK and around the world and US and Europe, they have a way of incubating PhDs. As soon as they get to a certain level, they see commercial value, automatically they apply for a patent, they take you to a technology park and give you a space where you're finishing your PhD, but you're also working on your invention, okay? But one other thing we can't do as a country is also to establish what we call engineering doctorates. These are PhDs, but not like the philosophical PhDs. They are doctorate degrees meant for people in practice who are in industry, who want to get a doctorate degree. They have a research idea, and but they don't want to write a PhD thesis. They want to just do something that can have industry impact. So somebody from a company that makes bread or yogurt or engineering firm can come and decide to do an engineering doctorate degree. And in case of the UK, for example, when you have an engineering doctorate degree, it is not even in the public domain. You don't tend to see those theses because there's a reason that person came to do it, for competitive advantage of his funder or his company. So sometimes they lock those theses for like 10, 20 years. You can't get public access to it because there's a reason they came to do it as problem-solving degree. Okay, this is an example of a student who got patent out of his PhD. It's a friend of mine. I know him. In fact, he was a few years behind me at Loughborough University. Well, not a few years. I was lecturing already when he started his PhD, but he did his PhD in removal of heavy metals from water through some filtration system that he developed. And believe it or not, he came from, I think it was PTD that funded him. By the time he got to the stage where they found the solution to, his idea looked mature, they invited him to patent it. They couldn't patent it because they are very ethical. They know they didn't fund the research. My PhD was funded, for example, by Loughborough. If I had come up with something, Loughborough would take maybe 60% of the patent value. I'll take maybe 40%, for example. In his own case, it was an external body. So they asked him to go to the Nigerian government or whoever is funding him to get a patent. I remember he and I, we spent a lot of time calling people in Futimina because we are both alumni of Futimina. And believe it or not, it was a struggle. It took him almost a year for anybody to even listen to him because we didn't understand the value of patents. But the good news is that eventually he did get a letter of recognition. He got a letter of award for to expand his funding, so his research work. He got a patent out of it. And believe it or not, he also got the Czech Republic to agree to support his work. Imagine the Czech Republic coming to a researcher in Futimina and saying, we like this idea of water filtration. We are going to throw some money at you. We want you to develop it further to maybe TRL level 7, 8, or 9. And that was very powerful for him because it showed that his work had real world industry, even international impact. Okay, so that's possible. Do not think that a PhD student is not capable of producing a patent. It all depends on the environment you give them, the motivation, the skills, and of course the support. Okay, but then again, there are other things that ways you can commercialize your research without necessarily doing a patent. There's some enterprise projects. Sometimes you have a project that's funded by the institution or a third party like an NGO or some other body, but the whole idea is to create money. Some projects are meant to create money. We call them enterprise projects. In fact, in the UK, we tend to have, like in a faculty, we have a dean. All right, we all know what a dean is. You have a dean of research. His job is to make sure you publish and whatever. We have a dean of teaching. His job is to make sure teaching qualities of the standard. We always have a dean of enterprise. His job is to make sure we are making money from our knowledge. So it's not about intellectual property. No. It's about, like, for example, creating short courses, creating solutions that you can easily sell, low-hanging fruit, things that you already have, Or you could do research. It doesn't have to be short course. You could do research that you don't have to even worry about patent. You could just start selling things and making money out of it immediately. Okay, and this is very important so that every school or department can have that kind of director of enterprise where they see the entrepreneurial value of what people are doing. It might not be from one product or one project alone. It might be a combination of this person's PhD, that person's master's degree, and from that other school, we have somebody that has that solution. Oh, this guy is developing an AI app that can do this. You bring it together, you come up with something that's an entrepreneurial thing. You see, it's not really like the research that you publish, but you just go and make money out of that. That is very, very powerful. This is an example of someone who does this very well. He used to be one of my colleagues at Loughborough University, Professor Neil Dixon. He specializes in slope work. He's a civil engineer. So in the UK, for example, they have a lot of trains, and I'm sure you know trains, they always want to go on a flat level, right? They travel on a flat level. So they tend to have slopes because you have to cut through any slope. Trains don't like to go on top of hills. So he developed what he calls slope alarm, where because of those slopes, when it's snowing or raining, sometimes you might have like landslide or ice falling, and then it can crash into the tracks. So the alarm will trigger, and then people know that it's not safe for that train to travel. When I was in Nigeria in July or August, or I don't know, that was the time the train tracks from Abuja to Kaduna were swept off by the rain. Nobody knew until the train from Kaduna was traveling and it derailed. If you have slope alarm, we would know this. So you can see how entrepreneurial work can be practical. And he's making a lot of money from entrepreneurship. He became a professor through the entrepreneurial, as far as I'm concerned. Not that he doesn't publish papers, but that's what he's known for. In fact, he used to be the dean of enterprise at some point. But then you can also do research and development partnership. We all know what R&D is. But do we really apply it? And do we think it can make money? Yes, you can. When you have an organization or an institution or some third party that is interested in furthering their work, you can go into R&D partnership with them. Like, for example, you have many assembly plants in Kano that assemble bicycles, keke napep, or whatever. If you're a mechanical engineer, you can go to sort of partnership where you can help them become more carbon-friendly electric vehicles. You can convert them into mini ambulances. There's so many ways you can do R&D partnership with industry so that you can create something that has commercial value. You know what I mean? And that either party can approach the other. The university can approach the company, or the company can approach the university. Okay? This will not necessarily put money into your pocket immediately, but it will cover your expenses, your time, and your resources. And if it becomes something that's valuable, then they will have a sort of formula sharing, whatever, especially if a new IP has been developed. If no new IP has been developed, you cannot make money from it. So if you're just applying lithium battery to keke napep, that's not an invention. You didn't invent lithium battery, and you didn't invent keke napep. Lithium battery, in fact, we have already electric keke napeps. But if you come up with a new way of using keke napep that has maybe a circular wind turbine on top of the keke napep, and it's generating wind energy, and it can drive the keke napep, or at least passengers can charge their telephone or whatever with that, then that's an invention that you could say, okay, that's R&D, and that could give you some advantage. Okay. So you can market yourself, okay? You have to market yourself as an R&D person, somebody who's capable of doing R&D. The world is not going to come and knock on your door simply because you have these great ideas. Use platforms like LinkedIn to talk about your research, your expertise, any little paper you publish, write a small blog about it so people know your expertise, and they can approach you and say, you know what, we think you can help us with this problem, all right? Now, this is an example. During the AstraZeneca COVID vaccine was a R&D partnership between Serum Institute of India, AstraZeneca, which is a company, and Oxford University. And that's how they would come up quickly with a vaccine that helped us to stem the tide of COVID. And then finally, we have spin out and start up companies. Universities can actually start companies of their own. When I say startup companies, sometimes people think I'm talking about, oh, ABU Consult, Footmin Consult, BUK Consult. No, those are just consulting companies. I'm talking about spin out, like a startup company from scratch. Like something like OPay. It's a fintech app. Imagine a university like BUK starting a company, a fintech company like that from scratch. You need to have an innovation park to be able to do this. Okay, but there's a difference between a spin out and a startup company. A spin out usually comes from university research, especially PhD research, whereas a startup company is just a new venture from scratch. Somebody can just come and use the facilities to make money. All right, and the capabilities are different. All right, in terms of spin out and startup companies, and the owners of the spin out will usually be the founders. The university will get a share. The researcher, PhD student will get a share. The supervisor might get a share. Whereas the startup company is independent of the university. They might just use the facilities in your innovation park, but they'll pay you some rent and they might collaborate with you if there's opportunity to supervise students or do research. Okay, this is an example of a spin-out company case study. This is the University of Leuven in Belgium, KU Leuven in Belgium. Believe it or not, this university alone has produced about 151 spin-out in the last 50 years. 151 spin-out companies. There are too many for me to list out here. So you can imagine how many companies in Nigeria have spinned out one. So how many universities in Nigeria have spun out one company? And here we have a university that has 151 spin-out companies, and they're all successful. Okay. So in summary, quickly, let's end this presentation because I know you don't have enough time. Things the university or faculty can do: start to have what we call a knowledge transfer partnership champion that can work with industry to transfer knowledge and enterprise work, and encourage you to think in terms of transferring your knowledge, because we have a lot of knowledge. We have a lot of intellectual ideas. Don't just publish them. Think about how you can transfer that to somebody in the industry, to R&D, for example. And I think every faculty or department should have, like I said, a dean of enterprise. But through this, you can encourage students to embark on enterprise projects. Okay, so when a student is doing a final year project in the Department of Agriculture or a Department of Electrical Engineering, as a supervisor, you can encourage him and stimulate him, poke him here and there, say, is this thing really going to have you real world utility? How can you make money from this? He may not be interested, which is not a crime. You can still give him his grade. But if he starts to think like a businessman, then you're going to produce high quality graduates who are not waiting for jobs, who can go out there and create jobs because they create companies. But that requires students learning about enterprise, which I don't think we do a lot of. But in many other countries, students, undergraduate masters, they take courses in business management, marketing, because at the end of the day, if you cannot do business or market, you end up being an employee. Nothing wrong with being that, nothing wrong with being an employee, but hey, the world runs on capitalism. Okay, so like I mentioned also in summary, engineering doctorate degrees are a kind of PhD that a university like BUK can decide to run specifically for industry people, not a PhD that is out there that people can really know. This is something that will solve a problem, they will help you supervise, because industry people don't know how to do research, and some of them don't have R&D departments. So they will send someone, one of their staff, to come and work as an engineering doctorate student, or sometimes they recruit an independent person who is capable, who's qualified. They fund his PhD with the agreement that he'll work for them for 5 years after the NGD so that you can transfer that knowledge to them. So you also think about establishing science and incubator parks so that you can host spin-out companies and so on and so forth, and also exploit PhD as a low-hanging fruit, something you can easily get intellectual property or commercial ideas out of. Okay, so in conclusion, basically, making commercial impact can be very rewarding financially and otherwise. It can be very motivating because without that, you'll be bored to death. There's the monotony of academic life: teach, mark exam, handout, lab tutorials, come back the next day, do the same thing, teach, assignment, mark exam, sell handouts, whatever. Money is a very good motivator to wake up every day. I'm not saying to teach and do research is not a good motivator, but if you know that through your teaching and research you can still make money, I think you wake up much earlier than most of us will do when we go to universities. But it's just a personal reflection. And also, when I say personal reflection, think about yourself. Who are you? What do I have? What are my strengths and my shortcomings? If you don't reflect personally on your own, you're not going to be a very good commercially inspired researcher because you don't recognize your strengths and your weaknesses. You also need to work with others and seek institutional support. Don't think you can do it all alone. Don't think you can make money alone. That's not how business people think. Okay? One problem we have in Nigeria is everybody has to have a one-man business. You need to think about working with partners who can bring different strengths. So if you identify who you are, where you are, you go far. Because, like they say, a map, any map that you see, you can take it from point A to point B. Like if I go to Kano now, you give me a map and show me this is UK, this is Go Campus, this is whatever, BG, this is whatever. It's useful. But if I don't know where I am, that map is useless. So I'm saying map your research landscape and identify where you are. What are your strengths and your weaknesses? What skills do you need to add to make your work commercially viable? Okay. So when you identify your skills, your strengths, and your weaknesses, then you can identify colleagues that can supplement your skills or your weaknesses, so that you don't have to say, "Oh, I could have done this, but I don't know statistical techniques. I could have done this, but I don't know app development." No, well, find your colleagues who are into all these things and work with them. If your institution does not have a KTP champion or a associate dean for enterprise, you can work in clusters, like maybe the Department of Mechanical Engineering or Agric Engineering. You can work in a cluster of research group. It doesn't have to be a formal group, but you are all working towards entrepreneurial work and commercially viable work. Some of you might be published, some of you might make money, and so on and so forth. You don't have to be a formal research center to be able to work together. Okay? But I would advise that you avoid departmental groupings, because the best ideas tend to be multidisciplinary. Okay? If you work just with agriculture alone, you might make some good ideas. But imagine if you work as an agri department, you're working with mechanical engineers, and you come up with some drones that can automatically distribute fertilizer. Don't think about that as something very interesting, So working across the department is always very useful. Okay. So you need to understand finally that the value you have is very important, and how best to exploit it. What value do you have? Who needs my skills or knowledge? In what format do they require it? And where are they located? Where can I find them? And if my skill sets are common, what can I do to differentiate myself? How do I go deeper? Because if everybody's doing this, everybody's doing that, everybody's talking about smart agriculture, and people are using drones to spread water or fertilizer or whatever, chemicals, farms. How can I do it different? I'm an agric engineer. I want to do something slightly different. Maybe I'll use something like swarm intelligence. For those of you who are into AI, there's something called swarm intelligence. It's a branch of AI where we study the way swarms of bees and birds and locusts, the way they fly intelligently. Yeah. So you can come up with this idea and say, okay, fine, people are using drones to spread fertilizer, but I'm going to use swarm intelligence to create a swarm of drones that can move around the farm collectively. They know exactly where water has been spread, where fertilizer has been spread, blah, 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 blah. This is something that can differentiate you, even though the idea is kind of common. Okay. I hope that makes sense. Okay. In conclusion, I'll end by saying that many of these strategies of commercialization can be used in combination. It's not just one thing. You can do KTP, you can do enterprise projects, R&D, patenting, PhD. So you can do patenting for your work. Your PhD student is doing something else. So for example, if you're a researcher and the patenting work or the commercial work is too much, you can sublet some of it to some of your PhD students with the understanding that you are giving them this idea. Put it in writing. That's why you need institutional framework. Anything that comes out of this is my original idea, and I will have a share. You will have a share. So don't try to do it all alone. Okay? But faculty or university management leadership is essential for these strategies to work. When you don't have institutional support, you'll struggle alone and you'll be frustrated. Okay? And because we know we have inadequate funding from government, I think universities need to start to think of alternative ways of generating income for themselves. And some universities are here even struggling with paying electricity bills. That's because they're waiting for government, and we don't really charge tuition fees that are enough. But if you can think of ways of making money, then you can be self-sustaining. Okay? So you have to develop these strategies in the proper frameworks so that they are officially part of the academic process. What am I saying? You don't want to just be working on commercial activities, entrepreneurship, and patenting. Meanwhile, your HOD is busy knocking on your door because you're an exam officer or because of whatever. This has to be captured as part of your work, your work. We call it work modeling. How you model your workload in the department. There's some allocation for teaching, allocation for research, allocation for supervision, allocation for enterprise, and so on and so forth. This is how things work in other countries. So some people will get promoted mostly because of their teaching, some will get promoted mostly because of their research, some will get promoted because of the entrepreneurial work, like I mentioned earlier. It's not like in Nigeria, respect, where after every 3 years, you polish a few papers, you are guaranteed promotion. No, it's based on metrics. So, but we have to have the institutional framework so that we can recognize the effort that people are putting into entrepreneurial work. Not that it's by accident, and if you like, you can do it. If you like, no, we should make it part. If a promotion criteria can be how much have you brought in as an income from commercializing your work? How many patents do you have? That can be a promotion criteria. Okay, and these are some of the things, in my opinion, that organizations like ASU should be fighting for its members. Allow people to be given the chance to do commercial work, not just increase their salary. You keep increasing your salary, but the value of the naira keeps going down. You need to think about other ways of making money. Okay, all right. Thank you very much for listening. I hope that was useful. If you have questions, I'll be more than happy to take them. And I hope I've not bored you to death. So thank you very much.
Yeah, that was a very powerful presentation from Professor Zulfikar Adamu. Unfortunately, like I mentioned, he couldn't be here to present in person because of the health issues, and we wish him a quick recovery. But fortunately for us, we hold a workshop on this specific topic previously, so we used the pre-recorded presentation of his. But that was a very powerful presentation. This is my second time listening to this presentation, but still, actually, I'm really motivated as a researcher. And since his first presentation, actually, my mindset has shifted in order to see we cannot just do research for the sake of research. Researchers also need money, and your only tools to make money is the knowledge. So we should all start thinking of how we can be critically thinking how our research can bring us money. So we really thank Professor Zulfikar, and we wish him a quick recovery. I forgot to introduce him at the beginning. We thanks him once again. So now we are going to move to the next presentation by Professor Sunusi Marwan Malladen with the topic Understanding Technology Readiness in Research Commercialization. So Professor Zulfikar talked a little bit about this technology readiness, but Professor Sunusi is going to talk a little bit in detail about the readiness. But before, I would like to introduce Professor Sunusi. He's a deputy director at the Director of Research, Innovation and Partnership at Bayero University, Kano. He's an associate professor with extensive experience in mechanical and materials engineering. He holds a PhD from the University of Malaya with international research experience in China and South Korea. His research focuses on advanced welding techniques, high entropy alloys, and additive manufacturing with a strong interest in commercialization and industry collaboration. He is passionate about translating research into practical solutions, supporting innovation and technology transfer within academia and industry. And also, I would like to add Professor Sunusi. He is the country director of Gamji Educational and Mentorship Forum. So thank you very much, Professor, for joining us. The floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning, good afternoon. I hope you can see my slide and you can hear me.
Yes, of course. You can go ahead.
So I would like to start by saying that this is an impromptu presentation. Actually, I received a call about 2 hours ago from my president, Buhari president of Gamji, confirming that Dr. Zulfikar is unable to make his presentation and ordered me to make a presentation. I cannot say no to my president. So this is a hurriedly prepared presentation, but I do hope you find it beneficial. Actually, I want to talk about understanding technology readiness level in research commercialization. Professor Zulfikar has already introduced the concept and highlighted it. So like the president said, I'm going into more details. So before we go deep into the TRL, I would like to emphasize what the first speaker, Professor Ahmed, and other presenters have said about research to market. Basically, when we talk about research, we normally think of knowledge, discovery, theory, and publications. But now, globally and even locally, institutions, government, and universities are encouraging their staff to move from just research, basic research, to applied research, and also to translational research, to move beyond just knowledge and discovery to impact and solution. and also application and value and money generation. Because we can have a basic research to discover knowledge and ideas. We can have an applied research to solve an immediate problem, but that still may not translate into commercialization or money making. That's why we have to move even beyond applied research to translational research. And there is a difference between these two. And as we go on, I hope we'll be able to understand the differences. I'm happy to report that now countries, including Nigeria, are putting emphasis on this technology transfer. I remember clearly the first presenter made a call to action, calling on Gamji to make maybe a call to the federal government to make a policy on establishing technology transfer offices. I'm happy to say that I think now the policy has been made and it's being circulated. We receive communication that each university should have an office for technology transfer. We already have in our university, BUK, I'm the Deputy Director, Innovation and Technology Transfer. And also, he also emphasized the need for incentives, maybe special grant for those who have patent. I'm happy to also say that in BUK, we have this incentive. Anybody who has a commercially viable idea, we help them with applying for patent. And if the application is successful, the university gives them an incentive of 500,000 naira. It may be small internationally, but locally, I think it's a very good start. Also, I want to inform that the federal government has introduced a program called Energize Commercialization Program, which is the first one is going to be held in the next 2 days in Kano. It's organized by the Federal Ministry of Innovation, Science, and Technology. I'm saying that to give us a glimmer of hope, to show that even now at Nigeria, the government is waking up to its responsibility and encouraging people to move towards research commercialization. So these are some of the benefits of research commercialization. For example, return on research investment. For us, especially in emerging countries, most of the funding for research comes from the public funding. So if we are not into commercializing the research and making more money, there will continue to be paucity of funds. But as we do more research, commercialize the research, the cycle continues. We have more funding, more money into the system, and so on and so forth. And of course, there is economic growth and revenue generation. If you commercialize your research, even as a staff of a particular institution, at the end there will be a sharing formula between yourself and the institution. So you get some money and the institution also gets some money. Of course, social impact and national development, job creation and technology independence. You cannot overemphasize the importance of this technology independence. As we have seen previously, I think the first speaker has also given an example of this war. We're not hoping for war, but you have seen the recent war between Iran and the US. You have seen the power of technology independence. So this highlights that we should move beyond basic research to applied research and translational research, just to make money and also have job creation and technology independence. So now back to the main topic of my presentation, which is technology readiness level, which is actually a framework developed by NASA on how to assess maturity of an innovation. Okay. So the framework is actually just a level, like a step from 1 to 9, from the concept development to final proven operational use. And it helps us to evaluate progress, risk, and to guide investment. Like Professor Z introduced, those of us in social science may think that this may not be applied to them, but as a framework, it can be applied to all fields. And the good news is there are variants of this technology readiness level. There is social readiness level, policy readiness level, but overall it gives us a framework on how to move from idea to final product and to commercialization. So these are basically these 9 steps, but they can be grouped into 3 steps: research, development, and deployment. So it's very important to move stepwise from one step to another right from the beginning. And it may appear that there is a repetition between these steps, but actually there is not. This was designed deliberately because, as I have said, this was developed by NASA. They have to do with aeronautics, aeroplanes, space craft, where we're dealing with human lives. So we have to make sure that we pass through very strict and very critical steps to ensure safety and reliability of components. So there is actually no repetition. There are very distinct steps. So I chose to speak on this topic because of 2 experiences that I have had in Korea. Number one is this. Actually, as introduced by the president, my research focuses on welding, actually car body welding. So in the car body, there are thousands of welds. We call them spot welds, thousands, 3,000, 8,000, depending on your car. So what happens after we do the welding? We need to confirm that the quality and reliability of the joint. So normally it's done physically. So our professor in Korea is trying to develop an quality inspection system so that we don't have to physically verify each weld to see that the quality is okay. So we are doing a research where we scan thousands of these welds, the result process using different processes, polyworks, simulation, and so on and so forth, AI. The idea is what you want to do at the end in collaboration with Hyundai Motor Company, that when a car is finished, the welds can be scanned rather than verify physically. We can do the scan and see if there is any defect. So what I have learned is that the work has been progressing from step to step, and each step presents particular challenge. Sometimes we have to go back from one step to another. So the idea is, if you want to commercialize your research, right from the beginning, it's better to, especially in engineering or science-based fields, it's important to follow these steps sequentially. This particular project involves millions of dollars when it is successful, but still it's been hooked in one step and one step followed by another step. So that's one of the reasons I thought it's very important to highlight the importance of these steps. Another example is we did a project also in Korea involving many universities, about 8 universities, including Yonsei University, which I think is the maybe second best or best university in Korea. So this project gave me an experience in the sense that if you validate your work in the lab, does not necessarily mean that it will work in real life or operational environment. And there are challenges moving from one step to another. Because Yonsei University is the one that is developing the material that we are working on. They have full lab validation, but for us to work with the material, it has to be produced in the company. And I have seen how challenging it was for the company to also establish the relevant condition. For example, we want to develop a material with strength of 2 gigapascal. Yonsei University does it in the lab, 2 gigapascal, no any problem. But once it moves to the industry, to the same material, but optimize the condition to produce 2 gigapascal, it becomes very serious problem. So that's why it's important to know each step and what to do and the documentation required. So now let's start with the number 1. TRL1 is just the basic principles observed. So in the product development, the first step is basic principle observation from basic research. And this can be done using maybe literature reviews. By conducting some basic experiment or simulation, you identify key scientific phenomena. And that's basic principle observed. So at the end of this, you are supposed to have some documentation or criteria so that when it comes to technology readiness assessment, because there is technology readiness level, which is just steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 9. But there is technology readiness assessment. If you claim that you have passed technology readiness level 1, you have to provide evidence. So this evidence can be in form of a report, scientific papers, or documented findings. So it's very important to document your findings at each step for verification. That's why what our project is facing now with our professor. If we claim we are past this stage, of course, the company that is going to invest their money, they will look for evidence and assess the evidence that you have provided to ensure that, yes, you have passed that stage. So this is an example. Just if you discover that a material has certain superconducting properties at high temperatures, so it's a discovery, and we can call it TRL1. So now TRL2 is you have to formulate a concept for application. You have to identify potential application. Okay, in the first step, you identify that, okay, this material has superconducting properties. And the second step, okay, it can be used for certain applications. Okay, so you identify a potential application, but no experimental proof of concept and no evidence. And this normally involves the following activities: concept development, analytical studies, modeling, feasibility assessment. These are things we need to do before we reach the final stage. So, and for this, you need to provide some evidence at the end. For example, you can have concept paper, you can have your preliminary design, you can have diagrams or feasibility reports, which you can present when they come for technology readiness assessment. And I give an example. For example, in the first stage, we identified a material with superconducting properties. Now we are developing a conceptual model of a new sensor to show that this material can be used for a sensor. So that's why we're moving from step 1 to step 2. Now, step 3 is experimental proof of concept, which is actually very important. Unfortunately, most of our research in the university normally stop at this point, after experimental proof of concept, where we do some, this is where the real development may start. We do laboratory demonstrations, and this may involve, sorry, my screen is tweaking, I don't know why. Oh. Sorry, let me stop sharing and share again because the screen has hooked.
Okay, Prof.
Okay, so TRL3, yeah. So at this stage, we do some modeling, simulation, laboratory experiment, and we also identify the key parameters. For example, for me that I'm doing my research in welding, at this stage, I may have to identify that, okay, this is affected by the current, time, pressure, force, okay? And then we do some component testing level. This is experimental proof of concept. We just demonstrate the basic functionality in the lab and identify the key operational parameters. And you must have some evidence at the end of this stage that you can show for assessment. For example, test report, data, the models you have validated, and demonstrations, and so on and so forth. And here is an example. If I operate a low fidelity prototype, what we mean by low fidelity prototype is a prototype with only the basic elements. For example, if I'm developing a bicycle, once I have, it has 2 wheels. Once I have the 2 wheels and it can move, that is low fidelity system. We don't have to have other like the carrier, the saddle, the safety, and so on and so forth, just to show that this idea can work. So that is experimental proof of concept, where we end up with a low fidelity prototype. So the next step is TRL4. Sorry, I don't know what's wrong with my system. It keeps working. Sorry. Sorry, I apologize for this. Okay. So TRL4. Now we can see TRL3 is experimental proof of concept. So TRL4 is technology validated in the lab. So we now validate it in the lab and show evidence that it can be used in real life application. So this may involve component testing and integration of other elements. Apart from the basic component that we have used, we now begin to add more components. And we also try to find, in the first place, like we have identified the key parameters, for example, temperature, current, time. At this stage, we need to know the range of the parameters. For example, the temperature has to be between 200 degrees C to 700 degrees C, the current between 3 kiloampere and 10 kiloampere, and so on and so forth. We identify the range of operating parameters. Sorry, my system keeps hooking. I don't know whether I can continue. Like, is it okay? Can you?
Yes, I think maybe if the problem persists, you can just go ahead and present.
Okay, can you see my screen now? Can I continue without the full not in full presentation mode? If you can see my slide.
Yes, I think we can see. You can just go ahead.
Okay, so
manage.
I will avoid using full presentation mode. So that's TRL4. And then now TRL5, we are now moving to we validate the technology in the relevant environment. You can see the difference. In the TRL4, we validate the technology in the lab. Here we validate the technology in a relevant environment. And this is where I gave you the example of Yonsei University and Korea and KITEC, Korea Institute of KITEC, Korea Institute of Technology. Yonsei University will validate their work in the lab, achieve 2 gigapascal, but it becomes a problem for KITEC because they have to produce industrial scale sample for us to move in the work. So these are two different things. Because in the medium fidelity system, we integrate more systems. We have almost a semi-finished component, which we have to test in the operational environment with a realistic support element. And we have to develop assessment performance criteria. And at the end of this stage, we must also provide evidence, demonstration report, performance assessment data, dated development, and scaling prediction. Because we have to, if you want to scale a product to be used in real life, you have to predict the requirements for that, for the scaling up. So this is an example. We have operating a medium fidelity sensor with realistic power in simulated field environment. So that's TRL5. So once we pass this stage, we can move to TRL6. Here you can see the difference, technology demonstrated in relevant environment. But here we are dealing with high fidelity system. You remember we talk about low fidelity system, medium fidelity system. High fidelity system means almost all components have been put in place. We have almost nearly finished final product. So here we have to integrate it and validate it under the operational environment. And we have to provide some evidence, test report, operational data, and risk assessment. An example is we have a high fidelity sensor, which we test in a pilot facility. So that's TRL6. And then we move to TRL7, system prototype demonstration in operational environment. Okay, so from TRL6, there may still be need to address some issues, some scaling issues. So at this TRL7, the final system reflecting all components and all concerns that have been addressed is now going to be tested and validated. And here we have to do the certification. If we are dealing with food, we have to do with NAFDAC and so on and so forth. We must have the full certification at this stage so that we can show when we come to technology readiness assessment. An example is we have the operating final sensor where we test in the actual field. So that's TRL7, and TRL8 is now, if you have the final product, we have to test it in the actual intended environment. If it is to be tested in underground water, underground, it must be tested underground. If it is in air, it must be tested in real life environment. That's why you can see, you will be hearing news that China has tested their first commercial flight for some 5 years. Sometimes it requires years, depending on the product. To do this, especially those involving human life. You have to test, get operational data for long-term monitoring, get feedback, continuous improvement, so that you can integrate into the system and get final feedback. So, and then the last step is the TRL9, actual system will be in operational environment. Now, everything has been confirmed and the product is ready for full commercialization. So the idea is to show you that for a product, for research commercialization, it requires certain critical stages, which may vary from product to product or from field to field. I believe for some product, you don't have to go through all these 9 steps. And for some, you have to go. And the most important thing has been also is, which is not part of my presentation, but it has been partly addressed by the previous speakers, protection, intellectual property protection. Once you reach TRL3, you may wish to apply for intellectual property, either it is patent or copyright or industrial design or geographical indication. You need to protect your work. You don't have to wait until you reach TRL9. Otherwise, somebody can just go and you can just see your work in the market. So this is about TRL9. Now we should talk about what is called the value of debt. Sorry, I hope you can see my screen. So there is something called the value of debt. You know, we have steps TRL1 to TRL9. But like we said, like I previously said, especially for us at the institutions of learning, our work never normally stop at TRL3. That is after validation in the lab. Many promising research never crosses this. They fall into this, what is called value of debt, because there is no funding. Most of the funding, especially in some of our countries, come from public funding. For example, TED Fund is given National Research Fund. All you need to do is maybe publish one paper, show that the technology is validated in the lab. But for people in the industry who want to invest in you, who want to do the real commercialization, they cannot invest their money just because you have demonstrated that it can be validated in the lab. I gave you an example of Professor's project and the Economist project we are doing with Yonsei University. So technology validation in the lab does not guarantee successful commercialization. So, but who is going to fund you? Who is going to give you the funding to prove that it is scalable, it is reliable, and it can be integrated? So that is the value of debt. There is a funding gap. Mostly the public funding stops at this stage. So that's why you as a researcher, you have to, if your idea is good, you have to look for funding to ensure that your work has crossed this value of debt. And I'm glad to see that now there are organizations that are providing funding for innovation, not just for basic research. There are different things. You can apply for funding for basic research. You can apply for funding for innovation. Also in Nigeria, TED Fund has now introduced what is called TED Fair, where some selected projects will be taken from the idea stage to pass through all these 9 stages and beyond. I think they are starting the next boot camp in the next 2 days, April 20th, and also a project from UK has been selected. So there are now opportunities. If your project got stuck, you need to look outwards. You can apply for this kind of funding or you can go to companies and try to show them how good your idea is to see if they can invest. But really, this is a big problem where most of our researchers end. And these are some of the reasons. Like I said, public funding is normally for basic research. Private funding is for commercialization. So there is this gap which needs to be filled. So many projects fail because sometimes there is technical risk. Beyond this, between 4 to 5, it fails. Or there is no market. It's a good solution, but it has no potential for commercialization. Or there are some limited resources. So these are some of the reasons. And to avoid this, you have to consider right from the beginning. If you have a research from the university, there should be a collaboration between government, industry, and universities, what we call the triple helix. And also, you can apply for TRL aligned funding. Like I said, there are funders that only fund innovation. They start funding from TRL 3 to 6. And also, you can move for incremental advancement. If you have got a grant and do a research TRL 1 to 3, you can apply for another one to move from TRL 4 to 5. Also, risk mitigation. At each stage, if you identify risk, do not rush to move to the next stage without addressing this risk. Also, evidence generation, like I told you, is very important. You can claim TRL, but it has to be verified using TRA, Technology Readiness Assessment. So you have to gather and document and evidence at each step of your work. And like I want to emphasize again, you don't have to wait until the final stage before you can apply for patent. Once you reach CRL 2, 3, you need to protect your work by intellectual property. So these are the takeaways. I think that's the end of my short presentation, which is an impromptu presentation. But I still hope that you have learned one or few things. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor, for the excellent presentation. I think we can all agree that this didn't look like a rush presentation. uh, so yeah, I think that was really excellent. No one would believe you have prepared this under 2 hours. So thank you very much, Professor, for the presentation despite the short notice. So I think due to the time, I will quickly move to the next presentation. But I think I really like the way we check this presentation from the beginning to the start, and now we can see how Professor Sunusi have really digest the process of how you can commercialize your research from the idea conception and up to the level of commercialization. Is really nice. I think if we can follow it all together, since from the presentation of Professor Ahmed Adamu to Dr. Zulfikar and to this one, it will really give us a clear picture and comprehensive concept of how we can commercialize our research and why we are going to commercialize our research. So I think we will quickly move to our last presentation, which is we are going to take a case study of how others commercialize their research from the laboratory experiment up to the market into into a multi-billion dollar company. And that will be presented by Dr. Aliyu Salisu, who is recently hold a PhD from University of Newcastle, specializing in energy storage with a focus on super capacitors and redox flow batteries. He is a research and development scientist at Allegro. I hope I said that correctly. Allegro Energy, working on advanced battery system and sustainable energy. With a background in industrial and applied chemistry and sustainable chemistry, he is passionate about translating research into real-world energy innovation, particularly for emerging economies. Thank you very much, Dr. Ali Salisu, also, despite the short notice, and you can be able to join us and share the presentation with us. Thank you very much. The floor is yours, Doctor. Sorry, Doctor, you are not audible. I'm not sure if you are speaking or not. Hello, Dr. Liu. Dr. Liu, we can see your slide, but we cannot hear your voice. I hope you can hear us. Okay, let me try to get in touch with him. Okay, now we can see you. I hope you can hear us, Dr. Liu. You are not audible actually. I see like you are speaking, but we cannot hear you. And even your mic, it shows that you can talk, but still we cannot hear you. Still you are not audible. Or maybe you can rejoin again. Uh-oh. Sorry for the technical issue. I think that Salus is having a problem with his audio, but I'm sure he's working on it and he will be with us shortly. We-
Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, thank God.
Oh, so sorry for the technical issue.
Yeah, it's all right.
I wasn't able, I had to connect like an external speaker to get it started.
Okay.
So like it says, I am Aliyu and I'm currently working as R&D researcher at Allegro Energy down here in Newcastle, Australia. We are working on redox flow battery for the next generation energy storage application. I don't know if I have anything else to say, honestly, because the professor and Professor Ahmed have already said a lot in regards to the whole topic. But while they were speaking, I just quickly jotted this down, an overview, which is quite what I would like to just share a kind of an overview. Um, of a spin out from the university, how it started from lab scale to an industry. From the presentation, what they have mentioned is for you really need to know your own value. What's unique about you? What's your strength? What are you bringing to the market? And at the same time, you need to protect yourself by the IP, by talking to the expert about how to commercialize your own product. And in many cases, you can't do it alone. You just have to find like a kind of collaborators, people around you. Maybe it could be your university, it could be your own supervisor, or some external collaborators that you can work on with. You also need to, I think, to build your own network, to know how to pitch, to build a very good relationship with the industry or the people around, because you never know who would be really helpful toward commercializing your own on product or your own idea. At the same time, one needs to be quite very professional. And if you would follow this kind of things or the strategies from what I heard from the presentation, then probably or you should expect like a kind of successful outcome. So who we are in terms of Allegro Energy, so it's just like a pioneering, or we can say it's just a spin out uh, company which was just founded or just not long ago at 2021. We had a very small team of around 20 plus engineers and scientists, with almost, I'll say almost every one of us having a PhD there. The current value of the company is around 14 million, but we have a lot of grant and equity around. Currently, we are just scaling in Australia, but we are ready to scale, like to start producing some of the batteries in other countries. So if we look at the background, what we see there is just like a huge battery that we are currently now building for an industrial type application. I will just mention more about the properties of the battery in coming slides. So we are building redox flow battery. For those of us that know chemistry, it's just we are having two tanks here. So the best thing about the redox flow battery is the scale. So it's scalable by design. So if we need more power, all we need to is just to increase the size of our tanks. And if we just need more energy, it's just to increase the size of our stacks here. And the whole idea of this Allegro Energy started. This is our knowing our own value proposition. This is something new. This is something that is scalable. This is something that we can easily commercialize. Then comes the idea. We tested it. We are very sure. We know that it works 100% in lab scale. Uh, then comes the idea of the patent. So we have to commercialize. So but because we start commercializing our idea, we have to protect ourselves so that the no one else comes after that and just claim that he have started it or they have started it. Um, then we have to find to see how much design can we come up like so that we are able to patent it a bit more. How far can we go in terms of scaling our idea? How much of the energy can we generate from our idea? So that's how far we can go, from 1 megawatt to 500 megawatts, depending on how I mentioned. It's all about scalability of the whole system. You change your tanks, or you can design more, so that you can design more dependent on the need of the customers, or dependent on the needs of the collaborators, or those that are ready to commercialize together with us. So if I just come back to this just case study that we are currently building, we find a collaborator here, which are the origin, one of the biggest Australian energy providers called the Origin. We were able to sell our idea to them, but because we need the money to start somewhere else, so they were able to come through equity and get some percentage of the company, but at least to invest heavily, so that we are starting from the prototype to build a huge this battery, which is around like just 100 kilowatt to roughly around like 8 hours of energy. Um, so this is us in terms of trying to commercialize, which is working now properly at different stages. Yeah, so as I mentioned, this is just a quick summary, and just to show like a quick case study that is quite really possible when you have the idea. First, try to know yourself much more better. Try to understand what you are doing. Try to share your ideas. with the people around you that you believe you can collaborate with them in terms of your supervision or the university, then you have to protect yourself, be professional, and I believe it will be a successful outcome. Um, so I will say this is just what I have for us, and I hope it's quite really helpful.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Aliu. This is really quite interesting one, and especially this show how uh, really summarize or conclude the whole webinar today. After all the presentation on how to commercialize research, this last presentation clearly practicalize how we can generate our idea and export this idea from the laboratory to the to commercialization to the world. And this Dr. Aliu has clearly shown us how their laboratory create this idea and also use it in order to make it into a multi-million company. This is really wonderful. Thank you very much once again, and also thank you very much for preparing this presentation despite the short notice in under 2 hours. Thank you very much, Doctor. So we supposed to have another presentation by Dr. Aliu, Dr. Abdulkadir Yusuf Maigoro, who also participating in a startup company where the idea come from his love, but unfortunately he is currently in Zambia on a business trip regarding the company. I think his network will not be able to allow him to join us to present his company idea. So I think this is where we are going to end the presentation, and we will take question and answers briefly, and then we will complete the presentation. So if you have any question, you can write it in the chat box, or you can raise your hand, and then we will allow you to ask a question. Okay, I can see some hands. Sale, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Please, I would like to ask if we can get all the slides for the presentation.
Yes, for sure. Sure. You will get all the slide. All you have to do is send email to gamjiedu@gmail.com requesting the presentation, and then it will be
Sorry,
sent.
Sorry, the mail.
Gamji, I already write it in the chat box. Check. I will write it now. Check the chat.
Okay.
I will drop the email there, so you can email requesting the slide. Then it will be sent to you, and also the recording will be available at our YouTube channel.
Okay, thank you.
So you don't have any question? So is there any question regarding the presentation on how to commercialize your research? But I think Dr. Aliu, I have a question. I think maybe I skip it in your presentation. I know it must have come from the funding, but how did the lab get funding in order to for example resource the materials to build this battery and also manufacture it? I think I didn't catch it from the presentation, Dr. Ali.
Yeah, so initially it was like a normal research grant, I would say, that started. We started it from like a research grant from one of the PhD student from our research group. So
Interesting.
most of the lab scale experimental design is from the grant. That's why the university have got part of the IP, some around like 10 to 20% of whatever The company made in the future belongs to the uni, so at least it's a source of source of income for the uni. Then that's not enough, like in terms of if you think of scaling up to industrial, and the uni doesn't want to pay more or doesn't want to at least spend um, hundreds of millions or any more millions of dollars to move like to an industrial type of battery. So therefore, we have to look for other to sell the ideas to other investors. Or so we started with this Origin Energy, which is like a huge energy provider in Australia. So we started with the company and explain the whole idea and show the lab scale prototype and show how it works, and that's the know-how of the whole. We know our own proposition, what we are proposing. So they discussed with some of the experts around. I think one of the professor from Stanford University. We had a little bit of before they were able to invest. We had to go through him so that he is like in between to verify whether our science is really working well. And we were able to convince them to invest in the company.
That's really excellent. That's wonderful. And it's really like literally from the from the lab that it spins out. I think this is really uh, a practical example that if our universities can try to emulate, and also our local researchers from Nigeria, if they can really try to emulate this kind of innovation, I think it will really change the mindset, and also it will change the narratives, especially when we link it to the saying of Professor Ahmed that we need to make research also more attractive than politics.
Mhm.
So I see.
Also to mention, like with the current situation going on in the Middle East, so with a lot of this big data companies moving away from of from the fuel, they are more moving into like a kind of renewable energy.
True.
So yeah. So we are having currently like a huge demand from most of these data centers,
Mm,
all of them moving to an industrial type of battery so that they can have a kind of renewable grid system. So they are just moving, and now is the commercialization part is done. Now it's more about making profit from it. You understand what I mean?
yeah, exactly,
So
exactly.
now we are having a lot of people who are showing interest. We want to buy your battery. So now is the time to at least make
Mm,
some
that's
profit
that's
out of it. Yeah.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting, and I hope maybe in the future you can at least maybe try to, based on your PhD research, also you can establish something back home. Uh, Maybe an independent company also, or an agent from the a similar company but in Nigeria. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully,
Mm,
inshallah.
mm.
Mm.
So that Eden, you can ask your question. Dr. Mabel Eden, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, good afternoon.
These are a very interesting presentation. I am from science education, and I've had interest in entrepreneurship, which made me to do a research in that area, because in science education, talking about specifically chemistry education, it boils down to the curriculum, content, teaching. So I was really wondering, where is the innovation? So there was a time we had a request to do an innovative work in American Chemical Society of Nigeria, I proposed a particular topic and my supervisors asked me, is that innovative? And I became confused. So I've always been searching what particular area I can really go into that'll be really innovative, because my work was on soap production, detergents, entrepreneurial skills, practical skills, to teach the students so that when they are out of school, they can actually commercialize this knowledge. But I was asked, is that innovative? And it threw me off balance. So I've really been searching. So I don't know if this house can really help me out. Because we in education, all they do is write papers, publish, and it ends there. And I feel very unsatisfied. So that's where I'm coming from. I hope we understand.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. So I think maybe Professor Sunusi, can you?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. Actually, sometimes people find it difficult to know what is innovative, but I think this MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, I had one professor give a very beautiful definition of innovation, which I always tell to people. I think it's straightforward. So what he said is that innovation is invention times commercialization potential. So you can see this, if you look at this carefully, it's very important. He didn't say invention is innovation plus commercialization potential, because if we use plus commercialization potential, it means we can have something new, but the commercialization potential can be zero and you can still have innovation. So in this current world, innovation has to do with, you have something new. Of course, you can have something new, but has no real life application, cannot solve anybody's problem. So by innovation, it has to be something new, and it also addresses some real life problem with some potential for commercialization. So I think you should look at it in this way. If you want to come up with something new, with something, you have to ask yourself, is this new? Yes, it is new. Is this addressing a real life problem? Can it be commercialized? If your answer is no, then certainly you don't have innovation. But if your answer is yes, then certainly your idea is innovative. I hope I answer your question.
Yes, thank you very much, Prof. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Dr. Ali, do you have some tips to add to that?
I'm all good. I think the professor have already answered.
Say thank you. I think we'll go to the last question.
Sorry, somebody ask a question in the chat box? I have already said it, but I can re-emphasize.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
The difference between invention and innovation. Like I said, invention is just something new. You can have something new, but it may not address real life or present societal issues. So that's not innovation. It has to be new. It must address a real life problem with potential for commercialization. That's the difference between invention and innovation.
And quickly, another one is asking, you have spoken about collaboration. What is the most effective way to collaborate with researchers of common interest to take your idea from TRL 1 to 9 in Nigeria?
Okay. So, number one, this depends on your TRL level. If you are at maybe TRL 1 and you are looking for collaborators, especially in funding applications, now we have this, especially, I don't know whether you are working in a tertiary institution or in a company, it doesn't matter. If you have an idea, you can collaborate with researchers in the university or other institutions of learning and apply for funding. But sometimes, collaboration is a win-win situation. Sometimes, for example, if you are not from the institution of learning, but you are the owner of the idea. So for applying for a funding, especially from TED Fund, you cannot be the principal investigator, but you can, of course, be the team member. So you have the idea, but somebody has the qualification, you can work together and apply for funding. That's maybe if you are maybe TRL 1, 2 to 3, so you can always apply for funding. But always the key point is, if you have something to offer, you can look for people who are doing research in your particular field. And I assure you, people are always willing to collaborate. But it depends on the TRL level of your innovation. If it is 1, 2, 3, you can apply for this national funding. If it is between 3, 4, and 5, you can also collaborate with the company. We have recently been encouraged. We have the seminar in our university for people to go out. We are told that the companies are willing to work with researchers, but the researchers are not going to the company. So you can look for a company that is working in a particular field as you. So you can go and see how you can collaborate together. But most importantly, if your work has passed certain stage, you should try to protect it. Make sure you have the intellectual property. But people are always willing to collaborate. Researchers are available. You can look for people. You can search for their profile through website and so on and so forth. I guarantee you, people are always willing to collaborate. So you can apply for funding, for innovation, or for basic research, which are available.
Thank you very much, Professor. I think this is where we come to the end of the session. So, as we come to the end of today's webinar, I will like to sincerely appreciate all our distinguished speaker, especially our guest speaker, Professor Ahmed Adamu, and also our presenters, Professor Sunusi Marwana Maladan and Dr. Aliyu Salisu, and also Dr. Abdulkadir Yusuf Megoro, despite he was unable to join us. We also extend our appreciation to Professor Zulfikar Adamu, despite being unable to join us due to health issues, and we wish him a speedy recovery. I would also like to use this medium to extend our condolence to Dr. Abdul Qadir Dalha, who supposed to be our moderator for today's session, but he lost his grandmother Illu, and we may Allah grant her Al-Jannatul Firdaus. And I hope today's session, it was really insightful, and I hope we can all get motivated and inspire us to think beyond discovery of just innovation or just research, but we can think of as a researcher at the same time as an entrepreneur, so that we can really move toward national development. So on behalf of Gamji Educational and Mentorship Forum, I appreciate your time and participation, and also this recorded video will be available in our YouTube channel, and we will share it in all our social media handles. If you have any further question, you can reach us at gamgiedu@gmail.com. Then we will respond to you. And if you need the slide, also you can email the same address, then requesting the slide, then it will be forwarded to you. Stay in touch with our social media for our future insightful programs. Thank you very much once again. So bye bye.